My name is Faith S. Bradford. I am 18 years old and I attend the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science.
My name is Malik Crespo and I am 17 years old and I attend the Mississippi School of the Arts.
My name is Rooks Russell. I am 17 years old and a senior at Northwest Rankin High School.
My name is Alana Brown Davis. I'm 17 years old and I go to South Pike High School in Magnolia, Mississippi.
My name is Lily Hale. I'm from Pontotoc Junior High School and I'm 14 years old. I am the author of Once in Full.
So I have been writing for as long as I can remember. I got accepted into the Mississippi School of the Arts in 2019 as a sophomore in high school. When I got accepted into MSA, my writing career really took off.
I've always been an avid reader, but I've never really tried to write until 3 years ago because I didn't think I could produce that type of work that I would read.
I've been writing for a while now, but I've realized now that that's what I want to be. And the piece that I submitted for the competition is the first real book that I consider that I've written.
I've been writing since I was young, mostly fan fiction at first. This isn't the first non-fan fiction piece I've written, but it is the first one that people are being able to read.
I would consider myself a pretty new writer. I didn't really delve into any of my creative abilities until I joined creative writing class, but hopefully I plan to take my pieces to new heights and turn my passion into a career. I joined the Creative Writing 1 class at my school, and my teacher, Mr. Richardson, he provided us with this wonderful opportunity to enter our pieces into the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, and I felt that I had a piece that would fit excellent into the science fiction category.
I entered this program because my teacher wanted me to. She literally walked up to me with the poster and she was like, "Do you want to enter this?" And I said, "Sure."
With Scholastics, we're required to submit every year, and this is my second year submitting as a senior at MSA. And our literary arts instructor, Ms. Sibley, always encourages us to take a chance on ourselves and to submit work, and we're constantly writing and revising and learning and growing. So when I submitted this piece, I had no clue that I would place or anything. So when I got an American Voices nomination, I was really blown away. I was like, oh wow, this is crazy.
I did not expect to place it all, actually. I was in class one day and I saw on a friend's Snapchat story that the awards came out. So I rushed over to my portal and I was absolutely astounded when I saw that I had won an American Voices nominee in addition to a few other awards.
I did not expect to place at all, and I almost cried when I found out I was nominated for this.
The piece that I submitted that won in this competition is a piece called Miracle. It is a novel, the first in a trilogy of young adult fantasy books. It's the story of a young girl named Mira who goes on a journey of self-discovery. She has amnesia and she can't remember who she was, but now she's trying to figure out her place in the world and her self-worth and who she can be. And I feel like that's a story that a lot of kids need to hear nowadays. Miracle really explores that and what you can be despite what your past might be.
Once in Full is a short story about Francis as he returns home from a dinner party on a December night. He turns around and sees Lydia leave her. She takes him to go see the stars, but when he turns around again, she's no longer there.
I chose to write about women. So often you hear the narrative of women needed to be saved by some outside force instead of just saving themselves. Like, women can save themselves and that's okay.
My piece is a dystopian piece called Entry 49, 2073, and it's set about 50 years into the future of our society in a city called Ocasas. It revolves around a boy who works in a factory near his complex where he constantly is subject to abuse from authorities in society. So at the end of my piece, he just takes a look at his room and he sees his brother's ashes on the nightstand and he really realizes that he wants to be the martyr for change.
So this work is called The Brownie Recipe. It was from a prompt that a teacher had given me. It was to write a recipe and convert it into a poem. What I sought to do was showcase the beauty of the various skin tones in the Black community in a way that didn't seem to put one on the pedestal, leave one out, and this was my way of doing so, and I hope that you all enjoy it.
SOS, Saving Ourselves. They say God isn't a woman, and I say she is my savior. Women are the saviors of sons and daughters They are war heroes. They are delicately stitched seams, deliberate and tucked away. They are the bread and the butter, spread thinly across a nation in need of saving. With our heads held high, we smile, arms wide open, embracing, fists in the air, marching. For Brianna, we will not give up this fight, because when we are in our beds sleeping, the ones who need saving are shooting. Women are the saviors of countries and communities. We are war heroes, and we will save ourselves. Women are not waiting in locked towers for men in shining armor. We will let down our own hair, break down our own doors, and no, we will not answer when you call. In fact, we won't answer at all. We are not sitting ducks. We are not damsels in distress. We are not yours for the taking. For centuries, women have been expected to lie down, to serve, to take what men think we deserve. But we are monarchs, and we will spread our wings to reveal an army. This battle not yet won. We have been fighting for far too long. We have forgotten how to breathe. We are war heroes, and we will rain down upon this nation in need of saving. For our sons and daughters, we are saviors. For ourselves, we are saviors. Women are saviors. So tell me again why you think God isn't a woman.
The brownie recipe. For this particular recipe, we don't speak Betty Crocker's prepackaged tongue. Direct yourself to the bacon aisle of the local grocery store, and you'll discover a bag of cocoa powder hidden beneath the alex. While you're at it, go ahead and grab some sugar. Brown sugar, the color of almonds baking in the copper sun, containing that finger-licking sweetness that'll make a diabetic reconsider the finer things they missed out on. Make sure to call your best friend and remind her of the hookup she got you with the coconut oil, her brother's girlfriend's uncle's third cousin twice removed, great nephew's fourth wife Nicole imported from Jamaica for half off. On the way to the checkout line, you'll come across the Reese's peanut butter cups you've been craving since last week, when you saw that commercial of a chocolate Easter bunny kissing a jar of peanut butter while Marvin Gaye cruised Let's Get It On. But before you can add it to your buggy, allow your eyes to wander over to a teddy bear-shaped bottle of honey you put in your chamomile tea when your evil twin parts the Red Sea for a monthly visit from hell. You'll thank you later. I almost forgot you have finals next week and a couple of all-nighters are calling your name. So it might be in your best interest to retrace your steps back to the cookie aisle where a crinkly blue package of Oreos reclines in the nest of crunchy delicacies. Anyway, back to the recipe. Drive home in a battered mahogany Rolls Royce your granddaddy bought from a marshmallow-colored brother down in New Orleans named Platinum Boudreaux back in '77. Stop at a prolonged red light near your salon. By the way, it's time for a touch-up. When your phone rings with a text message from Sonic letting you know that happy hour is right around the corner and that new caramel cookie dough ice cream is a limited edition. So you make a quick stop at the drive-in. Climb out of your forefathers' most prized possession, careful not to damage the paint, you just got a fresh coat Saturday. Sit on the red patio tables organized in a quad where you can watch the sunset and the amalgamations of pink rising from the sky's atmosphere. However, a silhouette of a man will block your view to provide you with an even better one. His blue-black skin glistening and raised like a fleeting river in midnight. Smile fortifying your scented affecting God, and who knows, this could possibly be him in final form. Cause he's nothing but grandeur in his walk. Like the champion durag draped over his head that resembles the Pan-African flag. Epiphanies begin to do cartwheels in your cranium when you recall a certain Instagram handle your little sister introduced you to. Property of an immaculate conception named Bekele Dab, a foreign exchange student from Ethiopia who studies anesthesiology at State so he can leave something bigger than himself at the altar of this Wayne city. But wait a minute, Bekele has his right-hand man flocking him at 2 o'clock. A lean cup of coffee with ginger ale and freckles to match starts snickering to himself once you realize that you've been staring at them both for at least a minute with your mouth gaping wide open. This will be one of those stories you tell your children when the world collapses and the only remnants of hope is nostalgia. About how you and Dad met during a solstice that made you completely forget about making brownies.
But then you met the Airwells, Kane said. They accepted you, covered for you even. Why? Mira looked over to Ezra, who tried to look as if he wasn't watching, but his progress was slowing down. His eyes cut over to them occasionally, and when they did, Mira and the older man made eye contact. She swallowed hard, trying to think of an explanation. He knew what she was. Why was he still here? Why did he bring her here? They didn't know, Kane realized. Mira went back to him. You ditched the uniform, got them to help you. Even without your memories, you're a survivor. I'm not anything to you, Mira hissed. She relented, letting some of the pressure off of him. If she increased it any further, she was sure she would break one of his bones. She wanted him to hurt, to feel pain. But at the same time, she didn't want her spells to be the thing that hurt him. You are, Cain said. I admire you, probably even more now than before. I don't want your admiration, Mira said. Cain nodded, as if taking an order. Mira didn't like how he listened to her, how he seemed to watch her, waiting on her words. But then you met Ezra and got caught up with the light spinners, Cain said, a bit of disgust creeping into his voice. I really wish we could have avoided that. No doubt they filled your head with all sorts of lies. They protected me, Mira shouted. Ezra, Liam, Beck, they tried to do what was best for me. They used you, Cain yelled back. Beck and Cyrus used your talent as an adept, as leverage. And what did you use my talents for? Mira asked angrily. Cain let out a low chuckle. Believe me, no one used your talents here. But about Liam and Ezra, they did protect you. The Airwells did shelter you, and for that they will be greatly rewarded. The Airwells won't accept rewards from monsters, Mira said with disgust in her voice. They accepted you, Cain muttered, frustration forcing his words. As soon as he said it, he knew he had made a mistake. Mira raised a fist, her magic responding to her action. Cain shot through the air and slammed into the back of the chamber. Mira went to advance on him, but before she could, Ezra was right by her side, pulling her back as he called her name in an attempt to calm her down. If you keep this up, I'm going to send you outside and keep Cain with me. We have a job to do, Ezra told her. When he felt her stop fighting, Ezra loosened his grip and turned his back on her as he resumed his spells. Why did you keep me with you? Mira asked him, her voice driving down on him like a whip. You know what I am. You know that I was trained by the Weaver's army. I heard you talking to Liam at the library. Ezra winced, fumbling a magic symbol. Because of that mistake, he had to wipe away the construct he had started completely. I didn't realize you'd heard me. I did. You knew I was a part of the Weaver's army. Why did you keep training me? Mira asked him. She waved a hand to Cain, who was still struggling on the ground, and returned him to his upright position. Ezra didn't turn away from his work. I made a risky gamble. Any sorcerer that's fallen into the Weaver's hand is already lost. With your skill, I knew you were probably a great weapon and tool for them. The smart thing to do would have been not to teach you. Then why did you? Mira asked again. Ezra turned away from the spell, looking into her deep brown eyes. It was selfish. You remind me so much of Rebecca. Mira saw a tear fall down the older man's face as he turned back to the constructs and spells. Mira took a step back from Ezra. She turned back towards Cain. Mira, he started, his voice pleading as he tried to reach her. Don't, Mira commanded, closing her eyes as she tried to fight down the feeling of dread in her stomach. Cain continued in a soft voice. You're home now. You're safe. We can help you. Dehisa is coming soon. We can bring back your memory. I don't want my memories back, Mira hissed, making Cain flinch. I know who I am. But you don't, Cain said, not cruelly, not trying to inflict pain. He said it as simply and with the same honesty as if you were saying 1 and 1 made 2. As much as you want to say you've moved on, as much as you want to say you're a different person, you still have no idea who you really are. Who I was doesn't determine who I am, Mira said, remembering the words of the dead sorceress. But your past is still an important part of who you are, Cain said. Mira shut her eyes, trying to block out Cain's words, Ezra's weavings, and the music of the magic well. The blue light blinded her eyes, flashing and clashing with the yellow magic and red weavings, turning everything a disorienting menagerie of the three. Finally, she let out a low whisper. Who am I?
Entry 49, 2073. I despise living by the bullet factory, but all my fathers have lived here. My father, his father, and his father. I am not granted a choice. Therefore, poverty has become a family tradition, and it is only righteous of me to follow in their footsteps. Out the door and into the factory. A glance outside the window makes me wish I would have done something grand. The view of the bullet factory serves as a big "we own" symbol to everyone living here. An 8-story building complete with clouded blackout windows, ashy gray bricks, security guards at each entrance, and safety nets around each floor. Though Cass's sector officials concluded that 2 suicides last week were too many, it hastily threw up another security measure there and at all residential complexes. I think an off day would have done us better. I suppose I deserve it, though. I cannot afford 13 bells to ride the metro into the Capitol Square, so business sanction housing must do. Maybe one day, though, I'll become a turnstile jumper. But I know getting caught means execution. It happened to my brother, Judas, and now his ashes sit in a plastic bag on my nightstand. Once I was convinced that it was the presence of his ghost and the scent of his ashes that woke me up in the mornings. Sometime last year, I would have described the stench as metallic, the air drenched with the blood and dread of everyone who succumbed to this ghastly society. But I know better now. I've come to terms with the truth. It was a foolish distraction from the reality of my life. Smelling noxious fumes of metal alloys and rubber polymers still jolts me awake promptly at 6 o'clock, 7 days a week. Being lucky enough to not have been drawn for the first shift, I lay in bed until the stench arrives in the mornings to remind me that work is in an hour. Thanks. Ocasas is a sector on the equator where we have 110-degree temperatures year-round. At bedtime, my father would tell me stories about the ancient times, the dark days as the officials call it, and how it got cold in the winter. I guess everyone back then was rich. Cold is a luxury only granted to the wealthy in Ocasas. The blistering weather makes it excruciating to sleep with the windows closed, so soot creeps through holes in the unbolted screen. Undeniably, the air is toxic, but I'd rather die this way than by sweating my sorrows into my bedsheets. With each breath, my nostrils sting, undoubtedly staining my throat an iron gray hue. Every inhale is a lick at my lungs, paired with wheezing windpipes through a too tight trachea. It is a cancer with no treatment and no cure. Maybe dying by heat exhaustion wouldn't be the worst choice. As I reach up to shut my cracked window, I involuntarily retch at the sight of my hands. My ashen fingertips resemble the gravel roads I plod on, chalky and cracked, beaten to bone. I should be used to them by now, but I've ignored for years that I am ill. I embody death in the form of life. 214,032. I have spent 214,032 hours slaving for Ocasas, fabricating those pristine, clean antimony bullets. The same antimony bullets to be locked, loaded, and let loose onto my people. We are the proprietors of our own suffering. Not always, though, because being assigned to an industrial job was a guarantee for freak accidents to happen. Last year, a proletarian failed to secure the packaging on a box of bullets, causing 200 of them to spill into the conveyor belt. Like an automatic assault rifle, the ammunition went rogue, injuring 5 and killing 2 others, one being my other brother. I don't have his ashes, but the oxidized blood splatters on the leaden cinder block walls act as statues of his remembrance. I still miss you, Isaac. The staggered rise in my lungs alerts me that it's time for work. Sitting up to look at my mirror, I wince at myself. After 49 years of building in the factory has built me, a sickly wage slave worthy of nothing but serving my superiors. Or so they would like me to think. I slip on my work shoes, which double as my house shoes, where the no-slip grip has been worn smooth, grab my rucksack, and throw on my gloves. Before I trudge to the decaying country pine doorway, I hesitate and gaze upon my room once more. There's a bed with broken mattress springs and a few missing floorboards. It's manageable enough, so I'm sure they'll be moving in someone next week because today I will be the martyr for change, even if it means I join my brothers in the sky. My barren nightstand could use an alarm clock. Judas could use some company.
The snow, illuminated by the moon, crunched beneath Francis's feet as he walked along the sidewalk that was beneath the eminence of light. He stopped, tossing his cigar onto the ground and stepping on it, smoke rising from below. Then Francis turned, clasping his arms behind his back. So, he followed me. The you in question, a woman, nay, a girl of only 6 and 10, nodded, her frock clasped within her hands as she bowed her head. She had golden tan hair that was pulled up into a bun, a few loose strands framing the soft features of her face, a pale thing with baby blue eyes. She stayed quiet, her arms shaking from both the cold and the embarrassment of being caught. Frances hummed, stepping closer and lifting her head. You mustn't look down, girl. It's a sign of inferiority, something I know you'd rather not be known for. And truly, such a shade of pink to such a formal event? You look even more like a child than you are, Miss Lydia. Therefore, no man shall marry and no lady will take friendship with you. He turned to walk away before he felt Lydia tug on his arm. Looking back, Francis saw that her eyes were wide and frantic as she searched his face. He turned his body to face her, taking one of her shoulders into his free hand. "You need to get back to your father, Miss Lydia. He wouldn't take kindly to you out so late at night, especially with a man outside of your family line as your chaperone." The girl stayed quiet, her hold on his arm growing tighter still. Francis sighed, removing his hand from her shoulder. "Very well then. If you insist on staying with me, I shall take you to your father myself." He started on the way before Lydia began to tug him in a different direction. Francis paused, looking down at her. "Where do you wish to go then, Lydia?" Lydia slowly grinned, beginning to walk in the opposite direction with her arm intertwined with Francis's. The man looked almost bored as they walked, with his free hand in his coat pocket. Snow fell around and on them, standing out against Lydia's hair and lit-up eyes. Slowly, Francis went to remove his coat and wrap it around the girl's shoulders. Her eyes widened, and she looked up at her chaperone, who shrugged. "You're cold. I can certainly do without it for what little time we shall be spending together." Slowly, she nodded, continuing her walk and pulling Francis along. Lydia was much shorter than him, only coming to his chest, but he was rather tall. In fact, Francis needed to take pauses between his strides in order to allow her to walk comfortably. She was an awful fragile thing, it seemed. Francis could probably snap her arm in half if it was deemed necessary. As they walked, Lydia slowly melted into his side, her head resting upon his upper arm and her hand holding on to him tighter. Francis had no clue where the duo was going, but he knew that she couldn't expect him to allow her to wander too far from home. That is, unless her fantasies matched that of her exterior, with a sense of childlike wonder that caused the imagination to run wild, filling her mind with the idea that every aspect of her life should and would be that of a fairy tale, much like it had been thus far. Lydia had, no doubt, lived as one of the king's daughters. Francis would have been 10 and 2 when Lydia was born, and he had hung around the same area as the Levers often when he was a boy. He could honestly recall seeing Lydia, wrapped in a fine linen blanket, lay down to rest in the finest silk possible, confined to the small area she would sleep in until she grew. But he had never seen her in the room again, the curtains always drawn. In fact, Francis had never seen Lydia again until that night at the dinner, where he noticed her sitting beside her father with her head down. To Francis's memory, Lydia hadn't eaten a thing at the dinner. She hadn't spoken either, and Francis believed her mute. All she would do was watch the others, particularly Francis, as he spoke amongst future business deals. "Perhaps she thought me handsome," Francis mused with a smirk. While Lydia may be a child in maturity, she was obviously a candidate for marriage, and one that would be rather easy to snag at that. She wasn't the only one of the next generation of Levers, nor was she the youngest or the oldest. Nay, she was the second oldest daughter of his best business partner, the second oldest daughter of his best business partner with fairly good looks and what would certainly be a large sum of money. Yes, Lydia would make a very good wife, one that would make perfect sense of that. Despite her lack of communication and her obvious childlike tendencies, she was the perfect wife for Francis. But he decided to wait on that notion, wait until he learned more about her situation. He hadn't seen or heard one word of her since birth, and it wasn't likely he would be accepted in proposal at the first meeting anyway. It took Francis a few minutes of thinking to realize he and Lydia had stopped in their stroll. Lydia was staring out at the stars from the top of the hill, her eyes like the morning sun glistening off the lake. It was a clear day, and the stars seemed bright, brilliant against the dark sky. Francis gently smiled, taking her hand and leading her away again. "Come, my dear, you'll find this a much better spot for stargazing." Lydia walked briskly to follow him, nearly running and holding on tightly to the coat she had been mended. Francis led her up the path to a dark alley. He helped her up some large crates, boxes nearly the size of the young girl. At the top, Francis hopped into the ceiling, grabbing her by the waist to pull her up. Taking her hand again, he slowly led her up the roof so that she didn't fall. When Lydia's foot slipped, he caught her by the arms to steady her. "Careful, Miss Lydia. I wouldn't want to be responsible for the death of such a beautiful girl." She smiled before wrapping her arms around him in thanks. Francis gently smiled, continuing to lead her up to the very top. When there, he helped her to sit down before sitting a good distance away and looking up at the sky. The stars were even more visible than before, without trees to block the path, and now Lydia would be able to see the town from below. Lydia's eyes lit up as she gazed at the stars. Her mouth dropped open in awe, slowly turning up into a wide grin. Francis turned his head to watch her with a soft smile. His eyes searched her happy face. She was practically flouncing with glee. Francis lightly chuckled, reluctantly turning to look up at the stars. After a long silence, he spoke again. "So, Miss Lydia, tell me, why are you so very fascinated with the—" At this point in the sentence, he turned his head to look at her again. But instead of her happy face, he was greeted by a freezing wind in his face that blew his hair back in an empty spot where Lydia had been sitting before. With a soft whisper, he finished his question. "Stars?" Hours passed of him staring at the roof in confusion. He certainly would have heard Lydia get up, or seen her move down the way, or felt her shift around. But the girl he had been plotting marriage with in the depths of his mind had simply vanished, it seemed. Eventually, it became far too cold for Francis to stay, so he stood and began on his way home. The next morning, the realization struck him like lightning to a high tree. Rushing out of the house, he barely had time to change, and was still buttoning up his coat as he ran to the graveyard, eyes wide. When he arrived, Francis fell down on his knees, wiping the snow away from the stone. Reading the words, he entirely slumped, running a hand through his hair and pinching his own arm to ensure he wasn't trapped inside his own head. Here lies Lydia Lieber, a soul lost far too early to a cruel world.
I just want to say to anyone who is considering writing or who also won an award this year to just continue to do what you do. The world needs your stories. There's potential in them, there's beauty in them, and in order for them to reach the level that you want them to reach, you first have to have confidence in them.
It's never too late to start. I'm about to graduate and I just started writing senior year and I was able to get an American Voices nominee. So remember that it's never too late to start.